Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Tuesday edition of Drivin with Mr. Met. It is Tuesday, January 21st, and it's been a couple of days since the Mets and Carlos Beltran, quote-unquote, mutually parted ways. And the Mets have not yet named a replacement for him. I'm going to talk a little bit about where things stand with that, and again, reinforce my position on where I think the Mets ought to be going. I'm also going to talk about some odds that were released last night that I saw on Twitter, and I want to go over where the Mets fit on those odds in the NL East and the National League, and I'm going to do that on today's show. After last week's decision to mutually part ways with their manager, Carlos Beltran, the Mets find themselves in the position to be finding a new manager with not a whole hell of a lot of time to go between now and spring training. The more I'm thinking about this, the more I don't think this is that big of a deal. Forgetting about and putting aside all of the fact that this is completely unfair that the Mets got embroiled in all of this nonsense, which I'll forever stand by because they didn't do anything wrong, and they're being punished regardless. And worst of all, they're being lumped in with the Red Sox and the Astros, both of whom have been caught cheating. So, the Mets should not be in the same conversation, but to the casual fan, they appear to be, and that sucks. But the other thing that sucks is that the Mets don't have a coach right now, don't have a manager right now heading into the season, which spring training starts in like 3 weeks. So I'm still of the belief that Luis Rojas is the right man for the job. I think that his previous experience with most of these players in the minor leagues makes him the best candidate to take over without major interruption. And that's my concern with looking outside the organization, and with names being thrown around, whether you believe it or not, Dusty Baker, Buck Showalter. The issue with those two, both of them, and I think more so for Buck than for Dusty, but both of them are going to want to have input in their coaching staff, and there's just no time for that. There really isn't. So the other thing is, I think they're both going to want commitments beyond this year. And I don't know that the Mets are going to be comfortable giving that. So if you go with a Luis Rojas, you can slap the interim tag on him if you want. He's the interim manager for 2020, and we'll see how it goes. If Luis Rojas leads the Mets to, a 90-plus win season, improving by 4 over last year, there's no reason why he couldn't be considered to be the regular, everyday, non-interim manager. But the Mets are still talking about other potential candidates. They've been talking about Eduardo Perez, who I think would also be a good fit. I have some concerns, mainly because, again, he's outside the organization and he'd be coming in completely from scratch, whereby Rojas has sort of the background of what the front office is like, and he's been in this role that they created for him, this quality control role, where he sort of bridges a gap between the front office and the dugout. It's a natural fit to me. That's why I think he's the right choice. And I don't know that he's the right choice in terms of the guy that's going to best manage the on-field product. I just think in the current situation, you can't be looking for that because there's too many strings attached to this job right now. So the other possibility is Hensley Mullins could be promoted to manager, but then you end up with a bench coach vacancy. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I do think the Mets are going to make this decision this week and make an announcement this week as to who they've announced or who they've replaced Beltran with. And when they do, we'll be back to talk about it. So the other thing I wanted to chat about was some odds that I saw released last night, and the NL East, and this is not going to be a surprise to anybody, nor should it, but the NL East is going to be an extremely difficult division. All 4 teams are in the top 10 in the National League East in terms of records. I say all four. I disrespect the Marlins, but they deserve disrespect because they're a joke of a franchise right now. So the way that these odds have broken out, and look, the bottom line here is that odds mean jack shit. They don't mean anything. They just mean that this is what the computer says based on n number of different criteria, that these are the way that things are going to unfold. We don't know. No one knows. That's why they play the games. But the odds suggest that the Braves are going to win the division again. 91.5 wins, I think, was their projection. Right behind them are the Nationals with 90.5 wins. Right behind them are the Mets with 86.5 wins. And behind them are the Phillies with 85.5. So you can't get a half a win. So it's either 92, 91, 87, or 86, or 91, 90, 86, 85. So that means the Phillies are improving by 5 wins over last year. I think they won 80 games last year, or 82. I don't know. I could be wrong. They were either right at or just below or just above 500. So it's a couple of win improvement for the Phillies. The Braves are projected to win fewer games, which again I think is accurate, and talked about this last week with Josh Donaldson leaving for the Twins. It's a big hole for the Braves. The Nationals at 90. I'm stretching to see how that's possible. Just because they lost Anthony Rendon, they lost one of the best hitters in the National League and in all of baseball, and they didn't replace him. So I don't see how they're given the 90 win plateau, but fine. The puzzling one for me is the Mets at 86.5, because they won 86 last year, and I don't feel like this team is on the same platform as they were a year ago. Now, of course, ifs, but the computer factors in ifs. If the bullpen is better than it was last year, they're going to win more than 86 games. They're just going to. There's no question about it. We've talked about this ad nauseum. They'd have won 10 more games last year had the bullpen been league average. Are you looking at a 96, 97 win team? So I just don't understand these odds. I don't agree with them. I'm sure that there's some science behind it, whatever. Science. But I think the Mets are better than an 86 win team. And it could just me being a stupid, naive, loyal homer. I hate to think of myself as that, but that's what I am. And that's fine. I don't care. I'm not just saying it because it's the Mets, though. I have legitimate reasons why, again, like I just said, all you've got to do is have the bullpen be a little bit better. A little bit better. And you got more wins than you had last year. How did they suffer offensively? Excuse me. What did they lose on the offensive side of the ball? Nada. They didn't lose a thing. So, again. Oh, and, by the way, they may be getting Yoenis Cespedes back. So, I just can't see how the same win total applies for next year. But, like I said, that's why they play the games. Last but not least for today, interestingly, once Beltran's departure was announced, I found it funny that the rumors started to spread almost immediately that the Mets were back in the market for Starling Marte. And if you unravel that a little bit and unpack it a little bit, you might understand why. Jake Marisnick was, to use a wrestling term, a Carlos Beltran guy, not a Paul Heyman guy. Jake Marisnick was a Carlos Beltran guy. In fact, the word was that Beltran really lobbied the Mets to get Marisnick because he felt like he was a really good, underrated player, in the vein of a J.D. Davis type. The guy just didn't get the full playing time in Houston and could benefit from playing more games in New York. So, Beltran gets his way, and the Mets go out and acquire Marisnick. And now that Beltran is gone, perhaps they're having second thoughts about how good Jake Marisnick might actually be, which is why I find it interesting that Beltran leaves and immediately the New York media starts pining again that, the Mets are interested in Starling Marte. Again, they've made inquiries again with the Pirates. So, meanwhile, if I'm Brandon Nimmo, I'm sitting there scratching my head like, wait a minute, what? if you get Marte and Cespedes is healthy and Conforto's in right, what are you doing with me? And he's right to think that, because you've got your everyday center fielder in Brandon Nimmo. Agreed, not the best defensive center fielder in baseball, but neither is Starling Marte. And guess what? Brandon Nimmo is not going to cost you players in a trade to acquire, because you already got him, and you're not paying him that much. So I'm not in favor of the Marte trade, but if it were to come to be, I don't know how I'll react to it. I guess I'll just accept it, because it is what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. I think it's just rumors and conjecture. I don't think there's any meat to the story, but like I said, we'll keep an eye on it and follow up as it unfolds. So that will wrap it up for today. I will be back at some point this week, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps Thursday, to chat about where things stand with the managerial search, talk about any additional personnel issues that have unfolded, and watch closely as the MLB decides how to punish the Boston Red Sox for their hand in the cheating scandal of 2018 for them. So until then, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.